The rain at Fort Ellsworth didn't just fall. It felt like it was being driven sideways by a vendetta. It was a freezing, miserable November downpour, the kind that turned the Georgia clay into sludge and made the steel fences of the military base hum with the vibration of the wind. It was 1400 hours, but the sky was so dark it could have been midnight. Inside the climate-controlled security booth at the main gate, Second Lieutenant Mark Miller adjusted the thermostat. He was warm, he was dry, he was bored. At 24 years old, Miller was the picture of modern military efficiency, or at least that's what he told himself. His uniform was tailored perfectly, his boots were polished to a mirror shine that even the rain couldn't dull, and he had a haircut that cost more than a private's weekly salary. He was fresh from officer candidate school, armed with a degree in logistics and a profound sense of his own importance. He checked his watch. 2 more hours at his shift before he could hit the gym. He hated gate duty. He felt it was beneath him. He was an officer, not a doorman. He glanced up at the monitors, then looked through the thick, bulletproof glass. He sighed. She was still there, standing just beyond the yellow restricted area line. A solitary figure braved the storm. It was an elderly woman. She looked to be in her 80s, perhaps older. She was tiny, shrinking into a beige wool coat that looked like it had been bought in the 1960s and mended a dozen times since. On her head, a fragile plastic rain bonnet struggled against the wind. Her hands, spotted with age and trembling slightly from the cold, clutched a brown leather satchel against her chest as if it contained the secrets of the universe. Miller slid the glass window open a crack. The roar of the wind instantly filled the small booth. "Ma'am," Miller shouted, his voice laced with irritation, "I've told you 3 times, you cannot stand there. This is a federal military installation. You are blocking a secure entry point." The woman didn't flinch. She simply looked up. Her face was a map of wrinkles etched deep by time, but her eyes were striking, a piercing, crystalline blue that seemed oddly out of place on such a frail face. They weren't the cloudy eyes of a confused grandmother. They were sharp, clear, watching. "I am waiting," she said. Her voice was soft, barely carrying over the sound of the rain, but it had a strange, resonant clarity. "I have an appointment." Miller rolled his eyes. "Lady, I checked the log. There is no Mrs. Vance on the visitor list. The Director of Intelligence does not take walk-ins from the street. Now please, move along before you get sick or arrested." "He knows I am coming," she insisted gently. She reached into her wet coat pocket with a shaking hand. "I have my token." She pulled out a silver coin. It wasn't currency, it was a challenge coin, heavy and dull, with no words on it, just a deeply carved geometric labyrinth design in the center. Miller didn't even look at it. He was looking at his phone, checking a text message. "I don't need to see your lucky charms, ma'am," Miller snapped, losing his patience. "Listen to me closely. The bus stop is 1 mile back down the road. If you are not gone in 5 minutes, I'm calling the MPs to physically remove you. Do you understand?" He didn't wait for an answer. He slammed the window shut, locking out the cold, the noise, and the old woman. He went back to his phone, scrolling through social media, leaving a national hero to freeze in the rain. A quick question for you. Before we go any further, I have to ask you something. If you were in Lieutenant Miller's boots, sitting in that warm booth, and you saw a grandmother shivering in a storm, would you have hidden behind protocol, or would you have opened the door? It's a hard question, because we all like to think we'd be the hero, but sometimes authority makes us blind. Where are you watching this story from right now? Let me know your country and the time in the comments. I read every single one. 15 minutes passed. The rain intensified, turning into sleet. The old woman, Mrs. Vance, hadn't moved an inch. She stood with a discipline that was almost unnatural. Most civilians would be pacing, shivering violently, or looking for shelter. She stood perfectly still, her feet planted shoulder-width apart, her breathing controlled. She was meditating in the freezing cold. Inside the booth, Miller noticed her stillness. Is she frozen? He wondered. Great. If she dies on my watch, the paperwork will be a nightmare. He reached for the radio handset to call the military police patrol unit. "Dispatch, this is Gate 1. I have a 1056, intoxicated or confused civilian refusing to vacate." He was cut off by a sound that vibrated through the floor of the booth. It wasn't thunder. It was the low, guttural growl of heavy diesel engines moving at high speed. Miller looked at the road. Approaching from the highway was a convoy, 3 black, armored Chevrolet Suburbans with diplomatic plates, flanked by 2 military police escort vehicles with lights flashing. Miller's blood ran cold. He recognized the flag on the lead SUV. It was a red flag with 4 white stars. General David Sterling, the base commander, the head of Joint Special Operations. Miller scrambled. He dropped his phone. He adjusted his hat in the reflection of the monitor. Panic. The old woman was standing right in the middle of the entry lane. "Oh, God," Miller hissed. "She's gonna get run over, and I'm gonna get court-martialed." He burst out of the booth, ignoring his raincoat, sprinting into the downpour. "Move! Move!" Miller screamed at the old woman, waving his arms frantically. "Get out of the way!" The convoy screeched to a halt 10 feet from the woman. The tires hissed on the wet asphalt. The lead SUV's grille, massive and imposing, loomed over her small frame. Miller reached her, grabbing her arm roughly. "Are you crazy? You're blocking the general. I told you to leave." He tried to pull her aside, but for a frail woman, she felt heavy, rooted.
Suddenly, the doors of the SUVs flew open. Usually, security detail exits first, but this time, the rear door of the lead vehicle kicked open, and General Sterling himself stepped out into the mud. He was a giant of a man, 6'4", a veteran of 3 wars, with a face carved from granite. He ignored the rain soaking his dress uniform. "Lieutenant!" Sterling's voice was louder than the storm. It was a command voice, trained to be heard over artillery. "Unhand her, immediately!" Miller froze. He let go of the woman's arm as if it were red-hot iron. He snapped into a rigid salute, his hand trembling against his forehead. "Sir, General, sir," Miller stammered, rain dripping into his eyes. "I was just clearing the obstruction. This civilian refused to leave the secure zone. I was about to arrest her for trespassing." General Sterling didn't even look at Miller. He walked past the lieutenant as if he didn't exist. He walked straight to the small, soaked woman in the beige coat. Miller watched in horror, expecting the general to chew her out. Instead, General Sterling stopped 3 paces from her. He snapped his heels together, crack, and raised his hand in a slow, crisp, respectful salute. He held it. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The old woman looked up at the general. A small, tired smile touched her lips. She reached up and tapped her cheek. "You're looking old, David," she whispered. "And you're looking wet, ma'am," the general replied, his voice breaking with emotion. He lowered his salute and immediately stripped off his own jacket, draping it gently over her shoulders. "Why didn't you call my personal line? Why are you standing out here?" "I didn't want to be a bother," she said simply, "and your gatekeeper was very thorough." General Sterling turned slowly to face Lieutenant Miller. The look in the general's eyes was terrifying. It wasn't anger, it was disappointment so deep it felt like a physical blow. "Lieutenant," Sterling said, his voice deadly quiet, "you saw a nuisance. You saw a confused old lady." "Sir, protocol dictates," Miller tried to speak, his throat dry. "Protocol?" Sterling cut him off. "You are looking at the woman who invented the protocol. You are looking at the reason this base exists. Open the gate, then report to my office. If you are 1 minute late, you can hand in your commission." Miller scrambled to the booth, hitting the buttons with shaking fingers. As the heavy steel gates rolled back, he watched through the rain as the general, the most powerful man in the military, opened the car door for the little old lady and helped her inside like she was royalty.
30 minutes later, the atmosphere in General Sterling's office was heavy. A fire crackled in the hearth, but Lieutenant Miller felt cold down to his bones. He stood at attention in the center of the room. He was still wet.
He hadn't been allowed to change. Evelyn Vance sat in the general's leather armchair. She was wrapped in a dry wool blanket, holding a cup of steaming tea. The general sat on the edge of his desk, looking at Miller. "Do you know what intelligence is, Lieutenant?" Sterling asked. "Gathering information, sir," Miller replied robotically. "No," Sterling corrected. "Intelligence is the ability to see the truth when everyone else sees a lie. Today, you failed that test." The general picked up a thick file from his desk. It was old. The cover was stamped "Top Secret, No Foreign, Eyes Only" in red ink that had faded to pink over the decades. He threw it on the desk. It landed with a heavy thud. "Her name is Evelyn Vance," Sterling began, his voice shifting into a storytelling cadence. "But for 30 years, the KGB, the Stasi, and half the dictators in the Middle East knew her only as the silencer. Not because she killed people, but because when she entered a room, secrets just disappeared." Evelyn sipped her tea, staring into the fire. She seemed to be looking through the flames, back into a different time. "It was 1974, Sterling said, pacing the room. The height of the Cold War. The world was terrified. Nuclear war wasn't a movie plot, it was a daily weather forecast. We needed agents, but we didn't need muscle. We had plenty of men with guns. We needed minds." "I was a mathematician," Evelyn spoke up. Her voice was stronger now, warmed by the tea. "I was at Cambridge, studying cryptography and pattern recognition. I didn't care about politics, I cared about puzzles." Sterling nodded. The agency recruited her because she had a gift. She could look at a page of random numbers for 10 seconds and recite them backward a week later. She could look at a street scene and tell you which car didn't belong, which pedestrian was walking with a fake limp, and which window had been opened since yesterday. "They sent me to Berlin," Evelyn said softly. "The city of spies." The story shifted. The office walls seemed to dissolve, replaced by the gray, oppressive concrete of East Berlin in the winter of 1976. Evelyn Vance wasn't Evelyn there. She was Helga Weiss, a boring, invisible filing clerk working for a logistics firm. "The mission was simple but deadly," Sterling narrated. "The Soviets were moving nuclear warheads using civilian trains. They were hiding them in plain sight. We needed to know the schedules, but the schedules were never written down. They were kept in a safe inside a Stasi headquarters, and only the highest-ranking officers saw them. Evelyn's job was to be so boring, so invisible, that she became part of the furniture. I wore gray," Evelyn said, her eyes distant. "I walked with a slump. I ate the same sandwich every day. I never spoke unless spoken to. I became a ghost. For 2 years, I didn't speak a word of English. I didn't laugh, I didn't cry. I just existed." Miller listened, mesmerized. He couldn't reconcile this image with the woman in front of him. "She got a job cleaning the offices at night," Sterling continued. "Every Tuesday for exactly 7 minutes, the safe was opened for the changing of the guard. Evelyn had to be dusting the bookshelf across the room at that exact moment. She couldn't take photos. She couldn't write anything down. She had to glance at the ledger, memorize 40 digits of coordinates and timestamps, and keep them in her head until she crossed back to the west." "The pressure," Miller whispered. "How did you not break?" "I built a palace in my mind," Evelyn said. "I turned the numbers into music. I played the song in my head while I mopped the floors. But the real story wasn't about the numbers. It was about the escape." Chapter 5, The Bridge of Traitors. "In November of 1978, Sterling said, his voice darkening, Evelyn had the final sequence, the location of 3 mobile missile launchers targeting Paris, London, and Munich. It was the most valuable intelligence of the decade. She signaled for extraction. The plan was standard, a dead drop at a train station near the border. Her handler, a man named Marcus, was supposed to meet her, give her a fake passport, and get her on the night train to Vienna. Marcus was the only person Evelyn trusted. He was a mentor. He was the voice on the other end of the radio. "I arrived at the station," Evelyn said. "It was raining, just like today.
I saw Marcus standing under the clock. He was smiling. He looked relieved. But Evelyn stopped. Her gift, the pattern recognition that made her a genius, screamed at her. "What did you see?" Miller asked, leaning forward. "He was wearing a red scarf," Evelyn said. Marcus hated red. He said it was too conspicuous, and he was holding a cigarette in his left hand. Marcus was right-handed. It was a signal. "He had turned," Sterling said, disgust dripping from his voice. "He sold her out. The KGB had gotten to him. They offered him money, safety, who knows. He was there to hand Evelyn over to the Stasi. There were 4 agents hiding in the crowd, waiting for his signal." Evelyn was trapped. Behind her, the station guards. In front of her, a traitor and a kill squad. She was 5 feet 2 inches tall. She had no gun. She had no backup. "So," Sterling looked at Miller, "what would you have done, Lieutenant? Charge him? Run?" Miller shook his head. I don't know." "She didn't run," Sterling said. "She attacked. Not with bullets, with information." Evelyn walked straight toward Marcus. She didn't look scared. She looked triumphant. As she got close, she spoke, not in English, but in loud, perfect Russian, knowing the Stasi agents were listening. "Comrade," she shouted, beaming with joy. "It worked! The Americans bought the fake data! You were right! The money is in your account in Zurich!" Marcus froze. His face went pale. "What? Evelyn, what are you doing?" The hidden Stasi agents hesitated. They heard this woman congratulating Marcus on a successful deception operation against the Americans. They heard her mention a bank account. Doubt. That was the weapon. "In the spy game," Evelyn explained calmly to Miller, "paranoid men are easy to manipulate. The Stasi didn't trust anyone. When I congratulated Marcus, they thought he was double-crossing them. They thought he was working with me to feed them lies." Panic erupted. The Stasi agents broke cover, guns drawn, not pointing at Evelyn, but pointing at Marcus. "Traitor!" one of the agents screamed at Marcus. Marcus stammered, terrified. "No, she's lying! Grab her!" In the chaos, amidst the shouting and the confusion, Evelyn simply stepped back. A commuter train was pulling in, steam and smoke filling the platform. "I stepped into the smoke," Evelyn said, "and I disappeared." While the Stasi tackled Marcus, beating him and dragging him away for interrogation, Evelyn boarded the train on the opposite track. She sat next to a nun, pulled out a rosary, and closed her eyes. She crossed the border an hour later. "The intelligence she memorized," Sterling said quietly, "led to the removal of those missiles. Diplomatic pressure was applied. The threat was neutralized. No war, no millions dead. Just one woman, a fake scarf, and a lie that saved the world." The fire in the office had burned down to embers. The room was silent. Lieutenant Miller looked at Evelyn Vance with new eyes. He didn't see a fragile old lady anymore. He saw a titan. He saw a warrior who had fought battles he couldn't even comprehend, without ever firing a shot, without ever getting a medal, without ever getting a parade. She had saved millions of lives, and he had treated her like a nuisance. The shame was overwhelming. It burned in his chest. Miller took a deep breath. He stepped forward. His movements were no longer stiff with arrogance. They were heavy with humility. He didn't just apologize. He walked over to where she sat, and he went down on one knee, bringing himself to her eye level. He took off his hat. "Mrs. Vance," Miller said. His voice cracked, but he didn't try to hide it. I have no excuse. I judged you by your coat. I judged you by your age. I was arrogant, and I was wrong." He looked down at the floor, then back into her eyes. "You are the definition of service. I am not worthy to wear the same uniform as you. I am profoundly sorry." Evelyn looked at the boy. She saw his shame. She saw the lesson sinking in. She reached out with her cold, thin hand and placed it gently on his shoulder. "Stand up, Lieutenant," she said softly. Miller stood. "We do not do this work for the thanks, Mark." She used his first name. "And we certainly don't do it for the fame." Being a protector means being misunderstood. It means standing in the rain while people who don't know any better yell at you. She picked up her satchel. "You have a job to do," she said. "You protect the gate. That is important. Just remember, the most dangerous things don't always look dangerous, and the strongest things don't always look strong. Never underestimate the quiet ones." She turned to General Sterling. "David, I'm tired. I'd like to go visit the memorial now. I need to say hello to Marcus." Miller blinked. "Marcus? The traitor?" "He wasn't a traitor in the end," Evelyn said sadly. "The KGB executed him a week later because of my lie. He died a bad man, but his death allowed me to live. I carry that weight. I visit his name on the wall every year to remind myself that my survival had a cost." The room went silent again. The complexity of her sacrifice, killing a mentor to save the mission, hung in the air. General Sterling offered her his arm. "Car's waiting, Evelyn." As they walked to the door, Miller snapped to attention. It wasn't a required salute. It was a salute of pure, unadulterated reverence. Evelyn paused at the door. She looked back at the young officer one last time. "Keep your eyes open, Lieutenant," she smiled, "and maybe buy a better umbrella."
Miller stood alone in the office as the door closed. He walked to the window and watched the general's car drive away into the rain. He touched his own reflection in the glass. He knew he would never be the same officer again. He would never look at a civilian, an old person, or stranger the same way. And that brings us back to you. We live in a loud world. We are taught to respect the people with the most money, the biggest muscles, or the verified check marks next to their names. We judge books by their covers every single day. But this story is a reminder of a truth we often forget. True power is quiet. How many Evelyn Vances are walking past you in the grocery store? How many heroes are sitting alone on park benches? How many people have stories that could bring you to tears if only you stopped to ask? I want to challenge you today. The next time you see someone who looks invisible, someone who looks like they don't matter, pause, give them a smile, show them respect, because you never know who you are really talking to. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button. It helps these stories reach more people, and maybe, just maybe, it will help someone else learn the lesson Lieutenant Miller learned today. And one final question for the community. Who is the quiet hero in your life? Someone who does so much but asks for so little. I want to read their stories in the comments below. Let's honor them together. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We have more stories of history, mystery, and humanity coming your way. Until next time, keep your eyes open.